2022 Endurance eRacing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriots, Azatec Sim Sports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Sten Goldman, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Very good afternoon. Welcome to the opening round of the 2022 GTR24H Endurance eRacing World Championship. The 12 hours of Matsusaka. We're just under half an hour away from green flag racing. It's Alex Goldschmidt and Kieran McGinley bringing you the build-up for what's going to be an absolutely brilliant race in prospect. The first of 6 rounds, Kieran. Great job by yourself and Yusuf on the morning show. If beige was
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing.
We're talking about the 27. It looks like the
Racing
BWT watercolour had definitely been watered down quite significantly, had it. But, you know, some great liveries for 2022. We've got, I think, the best part of nearly 30 teams competing. And qualifying yesterday was ridiculous. I think I needed to have the mobile defibrillator by the right hand side of my chair when Michi Hoy just literally blasted everyone else out of the water.
Well, you got to see that lap live, so that was absolutely amazing. I was just in the background there hoping that I could just catch a glimpse and see that lap time, but I'm sure that is going to be a lap that's going to be in Michi Hoyer's notebook and his scrapbook for years to come. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him say, "Oh, do you remember my lap in Matsusaka for GTR24H?" That's going to come up a lot, I reckon.
Yes, teams are in their final throes of, I think, say, afternoon warm-up. But at the moment, I mean, looking at how compact the field was after time qualifying, you know, some teams going quicker during the night time. I mean, I noticed quite a few in sort of like the GT3 classes, one of the two that I'm really excited about this season. Glam Racing not too far off of taking their maiden pole in the Audi R8, but Mugen Sim Racing, vice champions from last year after Unison beat them by the best part of just over 25 points, I think, at the Le Mans finale. They start on pole in the 82 in the McLaren 720S. You know, the depth and breadth of this talented field is really going to provide a fantastic opportunity for these drivers to really go toe for toe, driver to driver. And we all have commented on how tight this Matsusaka circuit is.
Yeah, and that's why qualifying is going to be critical, or it was critical, especially when it comes down to tenths and maybe even in some cases, especially in LMP2, hundredths of a second. The difference being, in the first couple of hours, the track is very narrow. There's very limited overtaking opportunities at Matsusaka. You've got the hairpin. That's going to be your main overtaking point.
Yeah.
And you've got the Casio triangle. Everywhere else around here, if you're trying to overtake for position, you're going to have a tough time trying to manufacture that gap you need and manufacture the move you need to make the move stick. However, as we progress through the race, strategies will take effect, and almost like I kept saying at Le Mans, you really don't know who's going to be on top until we really reach the final hour and when all those strategies have really panned out.
Big thank you to you all for watching here on the official GTR24H YouTube channel. Also, we'd like to welcome along our viewers over at motorvision.tv and the Esports Television Network, joining us for complete, live, uninterrupted coverage, and a big thank you to all our partners once again for their welcoming support. But there is a little bit of information we need to divulge with you right now, and it's about the prize pool, because Kieran, the biggest caveat, that this is not a traditional prize pool. It's not based on the results themselves on the track. It's how the teams interact. Social media, interviews, written content, YouTube channels, sharing the stream. That's going to be a part and parcel of what these teams are going to have to do in order to maximise their opportunity for getting as much as that $150,000 prize pool is, isn't it?
Definitely.
And there's also some tokens to go along with it. But, you know, the thing is that sim racing has exploded over the last 2 years. You and I both know that. Yusuf knows that. Sim racing has been on the map for many a year. But it was only in 2020 when everything shut down, COVID-19 came around, and we're still battling it to this day. We're not out of the woods still, even though I was saying that, I was waxing lyrical about that right up until the end of the Le Mans race last year. But we come into 2022, things are starting to open up. But now, as Mitchie Hoyer and I discussed during the official press conference, which you were watching from home at that time before we flew over with Yusuf on Friday, that sim racing has its own place within the motorsport fabric. It is now a tried and tested platform. We've seen it through multiple different drivers, Lucas Ordóñez, Jan Mardenborough, amongst others, making a significant impact. Miguel Faisca, you know, those are 3 drivers that have gone through the GT Academy, pioneered by one Darren Cox, who now is heading up the race these days in WTF1. His vision was something that I think a lot of people had a lot of doubts of, but now when you go into multiple different leagues or championships in sim racing, there is so much untapped potential that needs to be, I wouldn't say the word exploited, but given an opportunity towards, and that's what we're trying to do here at GTR24H, aren't we?
Definitely, and when you talk about giving teams and drivers the opportunity and the platform in order to give themselves the best chance of moving forward, take no further look than Verdukten, who have a very young stable of drivers ready to take on the challenge, and not only that, but to build experience on what it takes to drive one of these cars, the racecraft involved, and starting from such a young age, where normally when you're 10, 11 years old, you're looking at going into go-karting or looking into karting World Series. Here, you're being given a GT3 car or an LMP car and just said, go have fun.
That's the whole point. I mean, sim racing, there is a big community that surrounds it, but also with that comes that caveat of having enjoyment. Getting behind the wheel, putting in 3 to 4, maybe even, like some of the professional teams we've got racing with us, like Burst Esports, Simplexity, and Good Sunglasses, the 2 entries in DPI and LMP2 that will start in pole position for their respective classes after the amalgamated qualifying results were ratified and confirmed late last night. And you know what? I'm really, really excited. I think we've got a lot of opportunity for some great racing here at Matsusaka, and that will only lead on to the rounds at Monza, to Sebring, to Interlagos, Spa-Francorchamps, and of course the EEWC finale at Le Mans, late October this year. And as you can see behind us, you can see some of the cars out on track. There's the if the beige was pink car, the 27 of MCM. It looks like it's a Racing Point wannabe with quite a few shades of pink being relatively turned down, but nevertheless it's a very, very clean livery. The sponsors pop on the side and on the front of the car there, Kieran. You know, I think you were talking about Team Iris. I managed to put on the message system that we were communicating by, saying, is there a particular livery that actually clashes with Yusuf's Crocs? And unfortunately, they're too dark a green to be glow in the dark like a lightsaber at the moment. But he is comfortable. He's fine if he wants to do that. That's his bag. Good to see Alessio Neto from the 585 crew saying good luck to everybody. And we here at GTR24H want to wish every single team, every single competitor, everyone that's involved, the very best of luck for the 12 hours of Matsusaka, because when we go under green flag racing conditions, that's when the battle lines start to be drawn, Kieran, and that's where we're going to see a heck of a lot of action, and I can't wait to get started. I don't think anyone can, as we see Carl Lickergaard there on the...
He knew you were talking about him.
Yeah, well the thing is they can actually hear us talk, you know, they can actually mute our audio but can't mute our microphone. Well, they can mute... Yeah, we've muted our microphones right now, so they are at full concentration. And you can see Carl driving the 777. It looks like he's going to be starting the vehicle. But we've got teams anywhere between, you know, on a 12-hour race you can have 2 drivers, but for the 24 hours it's mandatory, like in real life, and we're simulating real life as much as possible here, Kieran. The true nature of sports car racing with a quartet of classes, just like they have in the FIA World Endurance Championship. You have your hypercars, you have your LMP2s, you have your GTE Pros and your GTE AMs, and that's what we want to simulate here. We want to give the folks a show at home.
Definitely, and not only give them a show at home, but almost be this an advertisement for the future teams, the future generations that want to go endurance racing. And I mean, we're looking at one class with Alexander Zakharov for the 717 Unison Racing, which has been certified as one Yusuf bin Sahail's favourite livery in GTE. That's certified. Yep. We can ratify that whenever we can. But a GTE, Yusuf and I were talking about it last night. We talked about it, dabbled about it on the morning show earlier today. That GTE is going to be a great class to watch. There's 9 teams that have entered into this class. But as soon as we said that, Alex, we had the LMP2s and their average qualifying time, all of them separated by around about a 10th or 2. So it's incredibly close, looking at LMP2s and of GTEs as well. So I'm thoroughly excited to get my teeth fully sunk into this season.
Joining myself and Kieran over the course of the next once around the clock adventure here at Matsusaka in Japan, we will have Yusuf bin Sahail. He'll be busy on the social media a little bit for us here at GTR24H, and we will be joined by none other than the man that most people know as King Kodiak. We like to call him Chris Buxton. He'll be joining us for some of the evening frolics and fun here at Matsusaka. But the Unison Racing 717 Alexei Mizin, it's definitely Milky Cereal approved.
Definitely, and as we discussed on the morning show, that is probably going to be his favourite livery of all. I just have to apologise for my voice. I woke up today with a frog in my throat, and I'm just trying to make sure I get through the next 12 hours. Luckily, I don't have to spend the next 12 hours shouting or talking at any time.
True.
Yeah,
true.
Luckily. So it should only get better, Alex. That's the main takeaway from this.
Yeah, I mean, this particular circuit opened back in 1962. It's one of 2 FIA Grade 1 listed circuits alongside Italy's Fiorano circuit, where Scuderia Ferrari normally go testing with the older cars. I mean, especially when you have the likes of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Charles is a keen sim racer himself as well. I still remember the famed banana moment where Charles Leclerc decided to wear a banana suit on his Twitch, and it literally, I think there were memes aplenty from one driver from Scuderia Ferrari. Obviously, Formula 1 has already had its first 3-day testing outing, or shakedown as they called it. in Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. But to see these cars now roaring around the circuit, we are about 15 minutes from the lights going out for 12 hours. The way that the grid is actually formed is actually by the efforts of what they did in qualifying. So we're going to have a bit of a hodgepodge, a haberdashery, so to speak, bringing out the words there. I hope that Chris Buxton, you hear that one. But don't forget, you can follow us on all the social medias on GTR24H on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. We're even on TikTok as well, so hopefully there'll be some posts on there later on. But you can also head to our official website, gtr24h.org, for further information about what we get up to here. And, you know, the track's looking pretty dry, 21 degrees air, 21 degrees track temperature. We saw in qualifying, though, Kieran, a very different set of circumstances. The air was cooler, allowing the engines to breathe a little bit more, but also the track temperature increased, and that gave us for those rapid lap times that we saw yesterday, didn't we?
Definitely, and one, as we already mentioned, Michi Hoyer taking full advantage of it in the day session. Well, it's not dry wet.
Well, it was in the dry and it was in the day. Yeah, so
it's not dry wet, Kieran. It's day night. That's what we're trying.
Daytime, nighttime. I'm not going to use the voice that goes along with it because I'll just embarrass myself at the same time. But I think you all might know what I'm talking about. But looking at things, you know, it's going to be a front row of DPIs with Burst Esports Simplexity and Maradness E-Stars. I mean, we saw how quick Yumi Nisula was yesterday, but you know, you had Mrocek and Simoncic going into that car for the nighttime stint, and between the pair of them, you know, when you have, I looked at the roster of Burst Esport, I was absolutely gobsmacked. They have brought some of their top aces. I mean, Simoncic is a known quantity here on GTR24H. Michi Hoyer, he's actually doing, and we've actually given Michi a bit of an opportunity, well, because he loves his streaming, doesn't he? He's always streaming as Michi Hoyer. Doesn't matter what he's competing in. They are going to do a complete point of view from the number 18 Burst Esports Simplexity car from Michi's perspective. So that will give so much different dynamic. One of the things that I'm loving is the interactivity and the banter on the Discord server that we have for GTR, where GIFs are being shared. I'm saying, stop asking me questions. Tony Jansen, I'm sorry, I'm having to name check you there. We are going to get some interviews with drivers during the course of the race itself, and hopefully some team bosses. So you'll also get to see, as we saw in qualifying 1 and qualifying 2 yesterday, how hard these drivers work behind the wheel. And I've always been impressed, Kieran, because the amount of sim racing in comparison with, like, say, like karting, which is something that I commentate on quite a lot, and I have done for the last 5 seasons. Actually, this is my 6th year going into karting commentary, and my 3rd in sim racing. It's really funny how I now have to sort of pinch myself and say, Alex, is this really happening? Are you doing this full time? And it's sort of like, yes, I was in the automotive industry for 2 decades, but from that perspective, with that glass ceiling now having been broken, it's really given an opportunity for drivers that are really good in real life, but they come across the sims and, like, literally everyone's going like, where's this guy come from? They do a Google search, then all of a sudden they get the frighteners put on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not the frighteners. They'll put the blinkers on.
That's probably the best term.
Perhaps they'll put the blinkers on.
Yeah,
Who knows?
definitely.
But no, it's fantastic. I mean, the environment here is really good. You've got top class drivers coming into GTR24H and hoping to add yet more silverware to their ever expanding trophy cabinets. I mean, I'm lucky enough to own one of those in sim racing.
Do tell.
Well, it was I think it was a 2-hour race, so it's not on the grand scale of 12-hour or 24-hour, but it means everything to me. The fact that I was the fastest driver in the team just makes it that little bit sweeter. That was about 3 years ago, so I have no idea how I am now. But I prefer this side of the desk now, that is for sure, rather than being behind the steering wheel.
Well, it goes like the old saying: if you're not good enough to drive about it, you talk about it, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we're both really, really happy being behind the microphones, and obviously a bit of a change for us for this year because we can actually hear each other now rather than having a set of cans on our head.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I like what he did there. You see, it's always about banter.
Timing.
Timing And we're going to see plenty of that from Chris Buxton, an absolutely brilliant master of the superlative, but also description. I think if anyone's seen his Twitter activity, it's sort of like, and now for something completely disastrous. Oh, I mean different. And you couldn't get more different with the amount of drivers from different walks of lives. People, even though some of these drivers are doing this professionally, they're actually doing full-time jobs alongside it. So it goes to show that people are putting a lot of effort, a lot of passion behind the wheel, and that is what we saw in qualifying yesterday. But the race, you said about it, strategy is going to be crucial. Managing your pit stops, managing the tyres. If there's an incident, we always know, and you try and tell drivers this, you don't win a 12-hour endurance race on the first lap. That is a given.
Yes.
But there are people that are going to try that risk versus reward if you're trying to get through traffic. And when you look about it, Sem 9 Axel and Unison Racing are starting behind the top 5 in LMP2. Now, we've seen it before here on GTR24H, and I'll just give an example. When Pin Simulers Esports, who are no longer an entity within sim racing, had Martin Hemmingson and Henry Sinnick behind the wheel of the McLaren Senna hypercar, they started, I think it was something stupid like outside of the top 25. They went to the front of the field and made mincemeat out of the opposition. So expect some drivers to come through. Good to see Roman Senor joining us on the YouTube chat. Oh, Milky Cereal's already thrown his arm into that one as well. Good luck to Viaducton, he says. The reason being with Viaducton's new livery, I have the inside track on that one. Myself and John Fabricius he said, I'm going to try and do a new livery, because we had that body in white with the big red fin, didn't we, last year. But he went, oh, let's try it in black, and had the red accents. And then I went, well, let's invert it. And the red... Chris and I were talking about the old Toyota GT1 Le Mans car. That's what it reminds us of. But how do you see things playing out? Because, you know, you've got the GTEs. We've got Mugen actually qualifying above MCM and ID Sim Sport as B32. Having a bit of a moment, and Teleforingen, well, style points there for B32 Racing, with a little bit of a gentle tap to help them on their way to right themselves in the correct direction.
Yeah, you see it just had a shape on the entrance into the first Degner, and you're just never recovering from that. We've seen so much commitment going through the first Degner at a point where Yusuf and I were sort of saying, well, it's not a case anymore of, you know, you just chuck the car in, hope it sticks. You're chucking the car in there and knowing it sticks. That's going to be the huge difference. But not this time around. Back end was already lost before, well, as it was going through the corner. But there goes. That was my favourite livery in GT3. So
yeah,
putting that out there as well. But yeah, no, I got distracted, so I forgot the question. But I'll carry on as if I know what I'm talking about. There is the Michi Hoya, who in the number 18 Burst Esports Simplexity machine. I mean, we saw him in daytime running. There's a bit of cloud over the circuit at the moment, because this is the warm-up session, so this is just a chance for teams to, I'd say, brush off the cobwebs, but just make sure they get themselves ready for the race. And maybe this is your last chance of trying some race fuel, race trim, looking after tyres instead of absolutely trying to get every inch of rubber out of them laid out on the track on your flying lap. So, Michi Hoya running a bit deep there, slightly missing the apex of the second Degner, but you know, this is all, you know, last minute race practice, just making sure that everything's working both on your end and also making sure that the car's set up for the race.
Exactly, and the thing is, if there is an incident, the car is going to have to crawl back to the pit lane and just sort of negotiate their way through what problems they have. But also in sim racing, Kieran, and this is one of the things that we don't talk about that often, but it's in the back of everyone's mind, that you can have an issue with a problem with, like, maybe say the CPU, the GPU on the computer. Even the cooling can sometimes, you know, if you've got some heat sink, and that's really throttling the performance, as we now see Michi Hoya on screen going through the Casio triangle.
Has he got a drink in nearby?
Here we go. He's reaching for something. He's reaching for settings, actually. And I like, the setups that these drivers have. It was a swig of his coffee. Just like literally, I was waiting for him to put the pinky up as well for good measure, just to rub it in. But, consummate professional, really good to catch up with in post-qualifying. And, he's a known pedigree. He's R Factor 2 GT Pro Season 4 race winner. He's been running in the Formula Pro Series. He's taken third place in multiple different R Factor 2 championships. And I will not be at all surprised if they put him to start. That's why he's out in the warm-up. You would think that for some of these drivers, it's about just sort of steeling yourself, getting yourself calm, cool, collected, and just getting to the zone ready for the off, because we're not that far away from going green for 12 hours. And I think, as the Germans would say, Michi Gänsehaut pur, the goosebumps are already starting.
I'm glad you're good with your German, because I had absolutely no idea what you said there.
That's why I always make sure that I translate, and I thought it was quite funny last year when I went full French, full German, and then English, and then Yusuf went, I thought we were on a different language broadcast all of a sudden. But the thing is that we want to bring our own unique styles to the commentary perspective. We will give our opinions, but we will stay as neutral as we can throughout the race. Obviously, we'll wait to see if Yusuf throws anybody under the bus. He's already done that with you this week.
Yep, I'm expecting one for you coming along. Have you checked the schedule of when that bus is coming?
I know it's going to come at any moment, and I am prepared and waiting for it. Yusuf, you're warned.
It's scary.
It is.
That bus is looming over you. You don't know when it's going to hit, but when it hits hard.
It's the double-decker bus going over London Bridge whilst Big Ben strikes 12.
I'm scared.
And just seeing Yusuf peer his head through production control, just
as if we're making this up. Why would we make this up?
We don't know. Look, the thing is that most of our, when we get into the nitty-gritty of going green, we're going to be ultra-professional. But obviously, throughout that time, there are going to be random stories about certain things, like we had Crocovision last night.
Please, let's not reopen that wound. Please.
Yeah. Look, Yusuf, you keep them on your feet this time. I'm warning you.
I can't get over that pole yesterday. Was it more than 60%? More than 60%. My voice can't even handle that, let alone me. It's unbelievable.
Mamma mia.
Unbelievable. But hey ho. That wound is hopefully being healed over the next 12 hours. But yeah, as we get very much closer and closer to the season getting underway, I am very excited to see, with all this pre-race build-up, with all the build-up through the last couple of months, the sort of winding down after Le Mans as well, as we spoke to a couple of drivers, as you've been speaking to a couple of drivers as well, the sort of the recovery process after a 24-hour race with so much riding on the final race. I mean, I'm looking forward to doing it all over again. Right,
with that in mind, let's have a look at the weather check, if we can, ahead of the race itself, because if you go to weather.gtr24h.org, you'll be able to see the location of Matsusaka and also the surrounding areas. And yeah, at the moment, there is no forecast for any change of weather conditions, but we know that at any point here at Matsusaka, especially in Asia, when a rainstorm comes, it hits pretty hard, doesn't it?
It does. I think you only need to talk about the Fuji Speedway back in, I want to say 2007, in the Formula 1 race there, where it was a washout to some degree. We've had weather fronts at Suzuka as well.
Sepang.
Sepang as well.
Fuji Speedway 1976, when James Hunt won the F1 World title with McLaren, as Niki Lauda decided after 3 laps it wasn't worth risking it after that massive incident that nearly took his life in that particular year of the Formula 1 Championship with the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And we all remember through the documentary, so to speak, or the docufilm of Rush. But we're coming up to the last couple of minutes or so of the warm-up session, and then we'll be lining up. I think really, Kieran, what we need to start doing is taking people through the grid ahead of the first race out of 6. So I think we'll get cracking with that. On the front row will be Burst Esports Simplexity and the number 18 DPI car. Then it's going to be a DPI front row. Burst it'll be Muradnis E-Stars in the 64. Actually, courtesy of Daniel Murad, real-life GT3 racer from Works Mercedes AMG driver, and also a big, avid sim racer. He's also a former Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals winner in years past, the Canadian. Then it's an all LMP Road 2 and 3. We've got Burst Esport, Gooder Sunglasses and Juices Motorsport Club on Road 2. Sem 9 Axel and Team Iris, that's 21 and 77 Road 3. Satellite Racing in the 164 will be joined by Sem 9 Axel, the third place DPI car. Looking at it from there, Kieran, you know, you've got Unison Racing, Cyberlinks, Team Adrenaline, Team Viaductin completing the LMP2 field and the DPIs. GTE looks incredibly competitive because between Juices Motorsport Club and the 74 Academy Aston Martin and the 67 Mugen Sim Racing, I mean, we had Roland Zux and Zoltan Varkonyi really pushing the envelope. On their cumulative average times, they were a tenth and a half on average behind Juices, and we've already put some predictions in for who we think is going to win GTE. I've gone with Juices, I've gone with MPE 54 second, and I think I've gone with Mugen third. Well, what about yourself?
Well, that will be revealed later down the line.
Indeed. I'm throwing the first prediction out there of who I think is going to go for GTE. We'll get some insight from Yusuf and Chris a little bit later on, but just take us through how GTE and GT3 is looking, and it's looking rather ultra competitive, isn't it?
It is, as we knew it would be. Juices Motorsport Club in the number 74 leading the field in the GTE class. Then it's the number 67 Mugen Sim Racing machine. Looking at this, the next row, it's a lockout between Musto, the 54 leading the 53. Very interesting to see how that dynamic will turn out in the grand scheme of things, whether they should be allowed to race each other. We'll find out whether they do. Then it's going to be the 45 DIS Sim Racing Lab machine in the GTEs, the 717 Unison Racing just behind there. Then we've got a GT3 car, the 82 Mugen Sim Racing machine. Yes, they've entered the GT3 entry, and well, they look pretty quick. So all eyes on them to see how well they can do, and maybe even challenge a couple of the GTE drivers as well. Then you've got MCM Motorsport and the number 27 ID Sim Sport in the 166 to round off the GTEs that set a lap time yesterday. Then it's all GT3s really. 404 Glam Racing. Then you've got the 585 Volante Racing by Acitec Simsport, the 777 DSR Gadget Huset, number 13 CKR, 188 Telefoningen, number 32 B32 Racing, and the 264 Satellite Racing. If it does start, we'll be starting from the back.
And it is. Jan Granqvist looks to be behind the wheel, as the field now being led by the official pace car, the GTR Corvette, as they head through the first corner. This is where things are really going to ramp up a little bit, because we're now getting ready. The drivers are prepared. We're primed for some exciting racing. Looks like Viaductin is actually going to be starting from the pit lane, I believe. I just saw them pull out of their pit box. So Viaductin will have to make some early work early in probably the first 60 to 90 minutes of this race to try and get on a level pegging with the latter part of the DPI cars. But they've got an incredible amount of traffic in front of them, haven't they?
They do. They've got their work cut out for them to make sure that they get themselves through, and not only that, make sure they get through in one piece. That's going to be a huge element to this race for them. They can try just for the first hour, work through the traffic, make sure
to 120 kilometers. The entire grid is now aligned.
You can, well, pretty much make it through the first hour, see how the rest of the 11 will go. The most important thing, keep that car in one piece as you negotiate through the field. You don't get the blue flags to help.
The 2022 Endurance eRacing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Aztec Sim Sports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Stengolm, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.